Tommy, I've said this many times. I don't have a vote, blah, 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 blah. But if I did, no, here's the reality. I just found out over the weekend. I do have a vote this year for end of season awards. I haven't really said, oh, this is my pick for this. This is my pick for this. Because I really do. I'm going to look at every award, whether it's coach of the year, MVP, all league, all defense, whatever it is. I'm going to look at the totality of the season. And specifically with the MVP race, I brought this up last week. I'll bring it up again. The matchup tonight, Jokic Embiid, is huge, I think, in the narrative around this MVP race. Embiid also has a matchup against Giannis, and he also has a matchup against the Boston Celtics. So he has 3 more games to really put a stamp on this. It is looking like a 3-player race. And you have to mention Jason Tatum here. He's probably going to be that 4th guy, given Boston's success, the season he's had on both sides of the basketball. But I found this interesting little thing. Thank you, Matthew Williams. So there's been 2 times in history where the same 3 have been the top 3 in MVP voting in back-to-back seasons. Magic, Larry, and Michael in 86, 87, 87, 88. And in 56, 57, 57, 58, it was Bob Cousy, Bob Pettit, and Paul Arizin. So this is sort of unprecedented that we're getting, or it's not unprecedented, but this is very rare that we are getting top 3 guys back-to-back seasons. Here's a few things. I'm just going to kind of monologue here for a second because I want to bring up the records of these teams. Denver 50-24, Philly 49-25, Bucks 53-21. Joel has played 61 games. They're 40-21 with him, or 40-21 with him, 9-4 without him. Giannis has only played in 59 games, 44-15 with him, 9-6 without him. Jokic has played in the most games, 66 games played, 47-19 with him, 3-5 without him. I think that matters. I think that those stats matter, right? Giannis's numbers particularly matter. Like I'll mention this. So Giannis right now has a chance to be the 6th player in NBA history to average 30 points a game and have a personal 75% win percentage. He's at 0.746 right now. So assuming they win 75% of their games from here on out, he's going to be the 6th player in NBA history to do that. It's happened 8 times though. Harden in 2018 won MVP. Curry in 16 won MVP. Jordan in 96 won MVP. Jordan in 92 won MVP. Kareem in 72 won MVP. Kareem in 71 won MVP. Elgin Baylor in 62 did not win MVP. So there's a very good chance that that could be the deciding thing. If Milwaukee wins enough games here, you have to say Giannis, given the 2-way, given that he's on pace to be the 5th player in NBA history to average 30, 10, and 5 in a season, one time in the modern era. And that was Russell Westbrook when he won MVP in 2017. The other guys all happened in the 60s. Wilt twice, Oscar twice, Elgin Baylor once. Like what Giannis is doing, I know this has been a lot of Jokic, Embiid. What Giannis is doing is incredible. And when you factor in their record, the amount of games that Drew has missed, the amount of games that Middleton in particular has missed, I feel like Giannis should be getting more love. Now, I'm not saying I'm voting for Giannis today. I don't have a favorite today. All 3 of these guys have cases.
Also, doesn't it matter that, he's would be finishing first in a conference against his, primary competition? Versus there's not another player in the Western Conference that is in this conversation like we just talked about.
I think that matters to a degree. I think it matters more when you're talking Giannis versus Embiid. I think that does matter. And I this is why I say the totality of the season, because I really do feel like, and I'll be guilty of this because I look at the totality. Those 3 games I mentioned that Embiid has left, that could sway me either way. It could. And that's not recency bias. That's pointing to this is so close to me. These 3 players are so close. They are all deserving of being MVP. It may come down to a particular matchup and who wins that matchup. And obviously, again, Milwaukee coming off a second night of a back-to-back the other night, Saturday night. We watched that game here too. Jokic won that matchup, right? I'm going to give you some good and bad on all these players. So Jokic advanced numbers, crazy, counting stats, crazy. There's one number in particular that I think stands out. When he's on the court, the Denver Nuggets outscore their opponents by 13.4 points per 100 possession. Insane. When he's off the court, they lose by 12 points per 100 possession. And he had wild swings in his 2 previous MVPs. There's nothing like that. A 25-point swing there on off net. That's how first place team in the West. Okay. That's value. All right. Defense. People always complain about his defense. We've seen a bunch of montage videos over the last couple of weeks of him allowing layups at the rim. Hey, sometimes the advanced stats and the eye test match up. Guess what? According to Second Spectrum, among 33 players to defend 300 shots at the rim this season, Jokic is dead last in field goal percentage allowed at the rim. That should be part of the conversation. This is where I think Giannis and Embiid have an advantage over him. And I just said, super valuable to his team, first place team. I just said it on off. That means a lot. I think this means a lot too. I will point out, though, that the Nuggets have been a top 10 defense dating back to mid-December. So I want to get your thoughts on that. The defensive argument and the knock against Jokic, and then I'll get to the good and bad with Embiid and Giannis.
I mean, that stat's really interesting. And we've talked a ton about how they've improved defensively. I mean, I think they still have a ways to go to be a championship contender. I guess what I'm curious about with all this stuff, and I don't want to, sidetrack this at all, but doesn't it just feel like these narratives just get stuck? And then you can cut up with any player, you can cut up whatever tape you want to prove your point. You know what I mean?
This is where I had an issue with a couple narratives that were brought up on First Take. Those to me are not narratives. A narrative is a story that you're telling that is based in reality, that is based on fact. That is a narrative. A narrative is literally telling what happens, what happened, what is going to happen. Not what that's predictive, but it's telling what is happening, what happened. It's not speculating on something that you have no evidence of. So the narrative around his defense is based in fact. It's based in fact. So no, I don't have a problem with something like that. That should be part of the conversation. All right, I'm going to go to Embiid. Incredible volume and efficiency as a scorer. Most points per game in a season he's on pace. Most points per game in a season in NBA history with 65% or better true shooting percentage. All right. This has happened 3 times. 2 Steph years in 2021. That was when they were in the play-in. Steph's unanimous MVP season. And then Adrian Dantley in 83-84 coming out of nowhere. Just a random reference. Most points per game in a season with 65% true shooting percentage. Incredible efficiency. This is where I think the narrative, right? This is what's happening. Embiid made a March push. He has made a late season push. Started March, I should say, with 10 straight 30-point or more games, shooting 50% or more from the field. He's the second player in the shot clock era to do that ever. The only other guy to do that was Shaq in 2001. He did it 11 straight games. Here's another great one with Embiid. Defense. 126 players have guarded a ball handler in direct isolation at least 100 times this season. Embiid is second in the NBA in points allowed. Patrick Williams from the Chicago Bulls is first. You want to talk about two-way? Boom. There you go. There you go. Now, the bad when you compare to Embiid, to Giannis and Jokic, is the playmaking. He's bottom 5 in assist to turnover ratio among qualified players in the entire NBA. And this is where I think again, as a scorer, in terms of efficiency, volume, it's Embiid.
How much does that matter for a center? That particular stat.
Well, so this is part of the thing, right? He's playing with Harden, right? So I think you have to look. Jokic leads the NBA in touches per game. He's the hub. He's the playmaker on that team. Giannis, because of the injuries, has the highest usage rate in the NBA this season, 5th highest usage rate ever. Yeah. He's had to do more. Embiid doesn't have to do that. I'm just bringing up something with Embiid.
The way the team
talk about
playmaking,
he doesn't really compare to Giannis, and he certainly doesn't compare to Jokic. And I brought up a bunch of great stuff with Giannis. The one point I want to bring up with Giannis, and then we can sort of move on. Again, all this should factor in. when we talk. And again, there's enough time left to have more discussions about this. And there'll be a discussion the last week of the regular season or as we get it going to the play-in. And I'll tell you who I voted for. I have no problem. I'll go through all my votes. There's been one MVP in NBA history that has missed 15 or more games in a season. And that was Bill Walton, who missed 24 games in 1978. Giannis has missed 15 games. That maybe should factor. Again, all of this should factor. Here's the reality. I've seen this on Twitter. Let's move away from destroying one player to boost another player. Tell me why your guy is the MVP. And I'm going to vote, and I'm going to tell you I'm going to vote for him. Maybe Philly fans hate me. Maybe Nuggets fans hate me. Maybe Bucks fans. I don't know. But
it's the thing I don't understand. This whole
all three of these guys deserve it.
The toxicity around this is so crazy.
When did MVP become like the most important
it's not personal.
Thing ever?
These are the three of the best players in the NBA in the world.
Jason, you know what matters? Jason and I talked about this last week. You know what matters? Who wins a fucking championship? That's what matters.
So one other thing before we move on. So tonight, how much do you think that this matters? Philly, Denver, because obviously Joel got the best of Jokic last time they played, and it was a thing that people sort of commented on at the time. But in terms of eye test, whatever you want to call it, when you got a lot of voters watching this thing, if he does it again, are you a little bit like, all right, okay, these stats say this, but we've now seen these guys play twice, and both times he's going back to last year. When they play head to head, Joel usually gets the best of him. Yeah. And so how much does that is that a thing? I
think it sways people. I think the individual matchup sways people. I do. Will I be swayed by it? To a degree, yeah. And like I said, I think all three of those games I mentioned for Philly, they're going to factor in for sure. But let's also say this. I would also say this, because this is where, post all that toxicity that happened on First Take, what happened after that? Embiid was playing great. He made a late push, and Denver started sucking. Yeah. So that's something that's happening on the basketball floor. That factors in.
If you want to watch the rest of the episode, check out The Old Man of the Three Things, available exclusively on Amazon Music.